Hello. Today I'll be talking about false and real prophecy from God. So, starting off, the prophets of today mislead the flock in telling them what their itching ears want to hear. They imply to their flock that they can continue in sin. But there is evidence that God is against sin. If one blatantly continues in sin, bad events not associated with their sins will increase. So, I've talked about this before, and this has been confirmed before by other people, and this will continue to be confirmed that God is against sin and he sends bad events not associated with their sins, and that will increase if we continue in sin. If a prophet has a dream, a vision, or they were inspired by God, and they say you can continue in sin, don't listen to them. God is against sin, as stated above. Yeah. Over 90% of the time, God will talk about his/her sins, the sins of a nation, or disasters that God will send against a nation through a prophet. So this is done in the Old Testament and even in the New Testament with Agabus, with the coming famine during Claudius' time in Acts. So there was a prophet in the New Testament and prophets in the Old Testament. And they talked about what they talked about. So they talked about death and disasters because they would not stop continuing in sin. The Israelites would not stop continuing in sin. And so God sent his prophets to speak to the Israelites in first person or through dreams or through visions, or they just say it and then they don't listen. And so God sends disasters after disasters until they are completely destroyed or until they stop continuing in sin. And so these prophecies take years. Yeah, so God will talk about his or sins, the sins of a nation or disasters that God will send against a nation through a prophet. If the prophet is not doing that 90% of the time, he is false. Also, these prophecies take years, if not decades, before coming true. And God does not give a time or date of when a prophecy will come true. So there's no example of this in the Bible, of prophecy. There's no time or date. And prophecies usually take years, if not decades, before coming true. Or longer. Maybe beyond their lifetime. So those are true prophecies. And so a prophet should not glorify himself. If a prophet gives a time or date, ignore him. If a prophet gives your itching ears what you want to hear, you will be blessed by God. God loves you, etc. Do not listen to them. Do not listen to him. So this is happening in the church today with the God love pastors and the false prophets. They're saying this, we're still blessed by God. God loves you, even though everything is getting worse by God as time progresses with inflation, with shootings. And so these disasters will continue to get worse, and these false pastors and false prophets, the prophets of the God of love, will continue to mislead the flock, which is unfortunate. And so that's a discrepancy to say this. God's not the God of love, Jesus. He is the I am, the one who sent Jesus Christ. He's against sin, all the sin. We have to stop continuing in sin, or God will continue to send disasters in the United States. This will continue. This will continue. Yeah, so what does God say throughout the Bible in the first person form, through a prophet? It is not rainbow and sunshine, it is death and disasters. So it's better to say death and disasters. So that will continue to increase. God is against sin, all the sin, you have to stop. Or God will completely destroy more people in the United States and everywhere around the world. And we cannot say prophets are for today. There were Agabus, Acts 11, verse 27 through 28, and 2 witnesses. Prophets after Jesus resurrected in the book of Revelation. But there were prophets. There should still be prophets of today, even after Agabus and before the 2 witnesses, prophets. We cannot say prophets are not for today. We should still have prophets for today. And the reason why that is because the best way to prove that a prophet is from God is to let God speak through a prophet in first person, to talk about his/her sins, the sins of a nation, and or disasters God will send. If it is about his/her sins, record his/her facial expressions as God is speaking through the prophet in first person. If he/she is lying and saying that God is not talking about his/her sins, then have an expert read his/her facial expressions to determine if he/she is lying. And if they lie, God will destroy them later, and that will be a sign that they lied. For God did not show partiality with Ananias and Sapphira when they lied. So this logic will be evident eventually. And so this is the best way to prove that a prophet is from God. He speaks in first person through a prophet to talk about his/her sins. So that's the best way to prove that that person is a real prophet of God. That is the best way. And obviously, following this logic, God will make his/her life worse if they lie. And so that's how you show who's the false prophets and the real prophets of God. So, yeah, so this is all I know about prophecy. If you read the prophets of the Bible, they speak in first person or they have dreams and visions. I'm in the process of reducing the biases on prophecy, and I will continue to do this. I will continue to reduce the biases on prophecy. And so this concludes the video on the false and real prophecy from God. And so I hope you enjoyed. I'll come out with more videos. And thank you.